In the heart of a barren desert where the wind whispers ancient secrets and the scorching sun beats down without mercy, a profound and timeless confrontation unfolded. It was here, away from the noise of the world, that one of the most pivotal moments in spiritual history took place. Imagine the solitude, the hunger gnawing at the body, and the weight of a mission greater than any human could comprehend. Who was the mysterious figure that approached Jesus in this desolate wilderness? The one known as the evil spirit, the Tempter, an entity whose presence was both a test and a challenge. This encounter wasn't just a fleeting temptation, it was a battle for the very soul and purpose of Jesus' mission on earth. Understanding who this figure was opens a window into the profound spiritual and symbolic meaning behind the story. As we explore this encounter, prepare to journey beyond the surface of a simple biblical tale. This is a story about power, faith, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. A story that continues to resonate through centuries and cultures. Stay with me as we unravel the identity of the evil spirit and the significance of this encounter in the wilderness. The wilderness, an expanse of harsh, unforgiving land, often barren and desolate, is much more than just a physical place in this story. It is a crucible of transformation, a sacred stage where the human spirit is stripped bare and laid vulnerable. The desert in which Jesus was led is symbolic, steeped in layers of spiritual meaning and historical context that have fascinated scholars, theologians, and believers for millennia. In the ancient world, the wilderness was a place of trial, purification, and revelation. For many, it represented isolation, but also the birthplace of profound insight. Prophets and visionaries throughout history sought the desert to escape the distractions of society and to confront their deepest fears, desires, and doubts. In this sense, Jesus' journey into the wilderness was not merely a physical act of retreat, but a deliberate step into a liminal space where the ordinary boundaries of life dissolve. The duration of 40 days is significant, echoing a recurring biblical motif connected to transformation and testing. Moses spent 40 days on Mount Sinai. The Israelites wandered 40 years in the desert. And here, Jesus endures 40 days of fasting and confrontation. This number resonates with the idea of preparation and the passage from one state of being into another. The wilderness, then, is both a place and a process, one that prepares Jesus for the monumental task ahead. In this stark environment, devoid of comforts, Jesus faces profound physical deprivation. Hunger gnaws at him, the sun scorches his skin, and loneliness envelops him. But beyond the physical challenges lies a deeper spiritual battle. The wilderness strips away external distractions, forcing one to face the core of their identity and beliefs. It is here that the figure of the evil spirit appears, not just as a mere antagonist, but as a complex symbol of temptation, doubt, and the pull toward power and self-interest. This setting reveals something essential about the nature of temptation itself. Temptation does not happen in comfort or ease. It emerges most forcefully in moments of weakness and vulnerability. The wilderness embodies this perfectly, a place where the mind can either fracture under pressure or be fortified by resolve. The struggle Jesus faces is amplified by this environment, underscoring the significance of what is at stake. Moreover, the wilderness is a place outside societal norms and human institutions. It represents a space where conventional rules do not apply, a realm where spiritual laws are tested. It's a liminal zone, on the edge of the familiar world, where the invisible battle between good and evil plays out in its rawest form. This intense isolation heightens the drama of Jesus' encounter with the evil spirit, making it a profound existential confrontation. By understanding the wilderness as more than just an empty desert, we begin to grasp the depth of this story's spiritual dimension. It is not simply a backdrop but an active participant in the narrative, shaping, challenging, and revealing the nature of Jesus' mission and the forces arrayed against him. This harsh landscape invites us to consider the wilderness in our own lives, the places where we face our deepest struggles and must choose between surrender and strength. When we ask the question, who was the evil spirit that tempted Jesus in the wilderness? We step into a realm of profound mystery and theological depth. This figure is most commonly known as Satan or the devil, but understanding who this entity truly is requires us to look beyond simple labels and examine the rich tapestry of historical, cultural, and spiritual symbolism that surrounds him. The biblical texts, the name Satan means adversary or accuser. This title reflects his role as one who opposes, challenges, and tests. However, the identity of Satan is far from straightforward. In some Old Testament passages, Satan appears as a member of the divine council, an agent of God whose role is to test human loyalty and faithfulness. This duality, both a servant of divine justice and a tempter to evil, creates a complex portrait that has evolved over centuries. By the time of the New Testament, Satan had become widely recognized as the embodiment of evil, the ultimate opponent of God and all that is good. He is often depicted as a deceiver, a master of lies and manipulation, bent on leading humans away from divine truth. The temptation of Jesus in the wilderness stands as one of the most vivid narratives illustrating this cosmic conflict. But why does this evil spirit appear in such a personal and intimate way to Jesus? Unlike abstract evil or distant cosmic forces, the tempter takes on a confrontational and almost conversational role. He challenges Jesus directly, presenting 3 specific temptations: turning stones into bread, throwing himself down from the temple to test God's protection, and gaining all the kingdoms of the world in exchange for worship. Each of these temptations is carefully crafted, targeting not just physical needs, but deep spiritual vulnerabilities and ambitions. Turning stones to bread appeals to immediate hunger and survival instincts. Throwing himself down from the temple tempts Jesus to prove divine favor through spectacle, undermining faith in God's invisible protection. And the offer of worldly power strikes at the heart of authority and control, tempting Jesus with a shortcut to kingship that bypasses suffering and sacrifice. This dialogue between Jesus and the tempter reveals much about the nature of evil itself. It is not simply about external forces, but about internal struggles, doubts, fears, desires, and the lure of taking the easy path. The evil spirit is a mirror, held up to humanity's own weaknesses, using subtle persuasion and manipulation to divert the soul from its higher purpose. Theologically, many scholars interpret the tempter as a representation of chaos and rebellion against divine order. In this view, Satan embodies the forces that resist harmony, justice, and love, forces that Jesus comes to confront and ultimately overcome through his mission. This confrontation in the wilderness is therefore more than a personal trial. It is a symbolic battle representing the ongoing struggle between good and evil in the universe. Interestingly, some traditions also explore the tempter's origins and motivations. Was he once a high angel who fell from grace? What drove this, being to oppose God so vehemently? These questions, while not answered definitively in the biblical text, enrich the narrative with layers of cosmic drama and tragedy. The personification of evil as the tempter also serves a practical purpose in the story. It externalizes the internal conflicts that all people face, giving shape to the invisible forces that challenge faith and morality. By confronting the tempter, Jesus models for humanity the possibility of resisting temptation and remaining steadfast in truth and love. Moreover, the presence of the evil spirit in the wilderness narrative challenges us to examine our own encounters with temptation. It invites us to recognize that temptation is not always blatant or forceful. Often it is subtle, wrapped in promises that seem attractive, but ultimately lead away from our highest good. The tempter's strategies in this story resonate through time, reminding us that the battle for integrity and purpose is ongoing and deeply personal. In exploring the identity of this evil spirit, we confront questions about the nature of evil itself, whether it is an external force, a personified being, or a metaphor for human frailty. Each perspective opens new pathways for understanding the spiritual and psychological dimensions of the temptation story. As we delve deeper into this figure's role, we begin to see how the wilderness encounter is not just a story about Jesus, but a mirror reflecting humanity's own spiritual journey. The tempter's presence forces a reckoning with what it means to choose good over evil, faith over fear, and purpose over temptation. The encounter between Jesus and the evil spirit in the wilderness is famously marked by 3 distinct temptations, each rich with symbolic meaning and spiritual significance. These challenges go far beyond simple tests. They represent fundamental aspects of human existence and the complex nature of moral struggle. To truly grasp the weight of this confrontation, we must dive into the layers of each temptation and what it reveals about power, faith, and identity. The first temptation, turning stones into bread, strikes at the most basic human need: survival. After 40 days of fasting, Jesus' body was weakened by hunger, and the tempter's proposal to satisfy this physical need was a direct appeal to his immediate vulnerability. Yet this challenge was about more than just hunger. It was a test of reliance and trust. Would Jesus use his divine power to serve his own needs, or would he trust in God's provision, even amid suffering? This temptation reflects a timeless dilemma faced by all humanity: the tension between acting on immediate desires and living in faith of something greater. It raises questions about the nature of power and how it should be wielded. Is power a tool for self-gratification, or does it carry a responsibility that transcends personal gain? The wilderness sets the stage for this profound inquiry, where physical hunger becomes a metaphor for spiritual yearning. The second temptation invites Jesus to throw himself down from the pinnacle of the temple, challenging God to save him through miraculous intervention. This test touches on the realm of spectacle and faith. The tempter tempts Jesus to prove his divine sonship through a public display that manipulates divine protection for personal glory. This temptation is a confrontation with pride and the desire for validation. By refusing to perform such a dramatic act, Jesus rejects the notion that faith should be demonstrated through spectacle or tested by demands for signs. This moment highlights the difference between genuine faith and performative acts. It challenges viewers to consider how often faith is pressured into proving itself, rather than simply existing in trust and obedience. The third and final temptation presents the offer of all the kingdoms of the world in exchange for worshiping the tempter. This is perhaps the most profound challenge, as it confronts the question of authority, allegiance, and the cost of true power. The tempter proposes a shortcut to kingship, worldly dominion without the suffering, sacrifice, and obedience that Jesus' mission would require. Here, the narrative explores the nature of true power versus false power. The kingdoms offered represent earthly authority, often associated with corruption, violence, and control. Jesus' rejection of this offer affirms his commitment to a higher kingdom, one defined by love, sacrifice, and spiritual truth. This temptation embodies the conflict between worldly ambition and divine purpose, highlighting the price of faithful leadership. Taken together, these 3 temptations form a comprehensive test of Jesus' identity and mission. They challenge his understanding of what it means to be the Son of God, the Messiah, and a servant leader. The wilderness becomes a crucible where Jesus' values, faith, and resolve are forged. Beyond the immediate narrative, these temptations resonate with universal human experiences. Everyone faces moments when survival instincts, pride, and ambition can lead one astray. The story invites reflection on how we respond to these pressures and what anchors us in times of trial. By examining the nature of the temptations, we gain insight into the depth of Jesus' struggle and the profound spiritual lessons embedded in this ancient story. It is a reminder that temptation is multifaceted, often subtle, and deeply connected to our core desires and fears. This understanding encourages us to look beyond surface-level interpretations and engage with the rich symbolism and meaning that the wilderness temptation offers. It challenges us to consider how we navigate our own wilderness moments, where choices define our character and destiny. The temptation of Jesus in the wilderness is not only a personal trial, but also a deeply symbolic event that resonates across spiritual traditions and human experience. This encounter embodies the eternal struggle between light and darkness, faith and doubt, obedience and rebellion. To appreciate its full meaning, we must explore the spiritual and symbolic dimensions embedded in the narrative. First, the wilderness itself represents a place of purification and testing. It is a spiritual void where distractions fall away, leaving only the essentials of faith and identity. In this stark landscape, the struggle becomes raw and undeniable. This setting symbolizes the inner deserts we all face, times of loneliness, hardship, and existential questioning where our deepest values are challenged. The presence of the evil spirit in this sacred space highlights the paradox of temptation. Temptation is not just about external enticements, but the inner conflicts that arise when our faith and integrity are tested. The tempter embodies the voices of doubt, fear, and desire that seek to sway us from our true path. This struggle is not unique to Jesus. It reflects a universal human condition. The three temptations themselves symbolize fundamental challenges to spiritual life: the pull of physical needs, the temptation of pride and spectacle, and the lure of worldly power. Together, they represent the trials that anyone seeking a higher purpose must confront and overcome. Jesus' resistance serves as a model of faithfulness, reminding us that true strength comes from steadfast commitment to truth and love, even in the face of adversity. Moreover, this narrative invites reflection on the nature of free will and choice. Jesus' responses demonstrate that temptation is an invitation, not a command, and that every person has the capacity to choose their path. The wilderness becomes a metaphor for the spiritual journey, where choices define character and destiny. The bee story also challenges common perceptions about power and success. It critiques shortcuts and superficial displays of faith, urging instead a deeper trust in divine timing and purpose. Jesus' rejection of the tempter's offers redefines what it means to be powerful, not through domination or spectacle, but through humility, sacrifice, and love. In the grander scheme, the wilderness temptation foreshadows the ultimate mission of Jesus: to confront evil, suffer, and redeem. It sets the tone for a life marked by sacrifice and unwavering dedication to a divine calling. This moment in the desert is a microcosm of the spiritual battles that shape history and individual lives alike. Finally, the narrative's enduring power lies in its invitation to introspection. It asks us to consider where our own wilderness moments lie and how we respond when faced with temptation. It reminds us that faith is a journey filled with trials, but also with opportunities for growth and transformation. If this deep dive into the identity of the evil spirit and the wilderness temptation moved you or made you think, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more insightful content like this. Don't forget to like the video if you found it valuable, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective on this timeless story. Your support helps keep this channel alive and growing. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more powerful stories that challenge and inspire.